I'm not your gossip girl, I'm the headline. Truth with a curve, baby, redefine. Welcome to the thirst trap. All the truth looks good in a tight wrap. We talk love, power, soul, and sin. Turn the world on, let the light in. Yeah, the thirst trap news. You'll drink it up, it's the real you. They've been trying to first real news, where every headline's a revelation.
Hey everybody, it is Sunday night, I think. Yeah, Sunday night. I don't even know what day it is. But we are continuing on with our subscriber-only limited edition series, which is the Human Origin series I'm doing on the Nightcap episodes. So this Sunday we are going over the Medo-Persian Empire. That's what we're going over. So, the Silver Kingdom and the Bronze Storm. History is not random. Empires do not rise by accident. They do not fall by coincidence. And long before generals marched, before cities burned, before kings crowned themselves gods, there were words, written and spoken, whispered into the fabric of time. Tonight we step into one of those moments, the transfer of power from gold to silver, from Babylon to Medo-Persia, and from silver to bronze to Greece. Because this isn't just history, it's sequence, it's pattern, and it's prophetic architecture. So we're going to begin in at Babylon, the Golden Empire. Under Nebuchadnezzar II, Babylon glittered like God on earth. Hanging gardens, massive walls, absolute monarchy. The king wasn't just ruler, he was a cosmic authority embodied. And then he dreams. He dreams of a statue. Gold, silver, bronze, iron. The interpretation is recorded in the book of Daniel. 4 empires, one after another, and Babylon, the head of gold, would fall. Imagine hearing that while standing inside the most powerful empire on earth. Impossible. And yet, in 539 BCE, no apocalyptic firestorm, no dramatic siege. Instead, silence. The Euphrates River lowers. Gates are left carelessly open, and soldiers move into darkness. By morning, Babylon belongs to Cyrus the Great. Just like that, the gold head falls, and silver rises. Now, this is where it gets fascinating. Daniel doesn't just describe silver. He later sees a vision, a ram with 2 horns, a horn higher than the other, and the higher one rises later. A text itself tells us this ram represents Media and Persia. 2 peoples, 1 empire. So the Medes rise first, but Persia rises higher. Historically, that's exactly what happens. The Medes once ruled by the Persians until Cyrus unites them and Persia becomes dominant. This is not vague symbolism, it's very specific. The dual nature of the empire is even reflected in political structure. The law of the Medes and Persians. Irrevocable law. You see the shift? Babylon was personality powered, and the king was godlike. Medo-Persia becomes system powered, law above the king. Administration, satraps, infrastructure, the royal road stretching 2,500 kilometers. Power becomes bureaucratic, more organized, less theoretical, and silver instead of gold. But there is something even more shocking. In the book of Isaiah, written long before Cyrus enters Babylon, Cyrus Cyrus conquers Babylon, Cyrus is named. He's called anointed, Messiah, a Persian king, not Jewish, not Hebrew, yet described as divinely appointed to restore Jerusalem. And he does exactly that. He allows exiles to return, funds the rebuilding of the temple. And this temple doesn't destroy Jerusalem, it restores it. That matters because Medo-Persia becomes the bridge empire, not chaotic like Assyria, not decadent like Babylon. It stabilizes the world. It builds roads. It creates trade networks. It standardizes currency. It connects continents, and without realizing it, it prepares the world for what comes next. Because Daniel's vision doesn't end with the ram. Suddenly, a goat appears from the west, moving so fast it doesn't touch the ground. With a single large horn, the text says plainly, the goat is Greece. And that horn, its first king. Here enters Alexander the Great. He crosses into Asia in 334 BCE within 3 battles. Issus, Guagmela, and the collapse of Darius III. The largest empire on earth then shatters. And just like Daniel described, the goat strikes the ram, breaks its horns, tramples it. The speed is emphasized in prophecy. And Alexander's campaign is historically one of the fastest military conquests ever recorded. In less than a decade, Medo-Persia, the silver stabilizer, is gone, and bronze takes its place. Now here's where the shift becomes civilizational. Babylon conquered land, Persia governed land, Greece conquered minds. Alexander doesn't defeat armies, he spreads language. Koine Greek becomes the common tongue across the Mediterranean. Philosophy spreads. Plato, Aristotle, metaphysics, logic, identity. The world becomes intellectually unified. And Daniel sees something else. The great horn Alexander is broken at its height, at the peak of power, and 4 horns rise in its place. Alexander dies at 32 in Babylon, and his empire fractures into 4 divisions under his generals. Again, specific, not symbolic fog, structural alignment. So what are we witnessing here? Not random conquests, but a sequence. Gold, centralized divine monarchy. Silver, dual legal empire. And bronze, cultural and intellectual dominion. Each empire becomes less about divine kingship and more about system, abstraction, institution. Power becomes less personal and more structural. By the time we reach Rome, iron authority becomes machine-like, military, administrative, relentless. But it begins with this transfer from Babylon to Medo-Persia, and then Medo-Persia to Greece, silver to bronze. And here's the deeper layer. Medo-Persia was necessary. Without Persian roads, Alexander's speed would have not been possible. Without Persian administration, Greek control would have collapsed immediately. Without Persian tolerance, Jerusalem would not have been restored, and the religious currents of the next century would not unfold the same way. The Silver Kingdom is a quiet architect. It doesn't glitter like Babylon. It doesn't philosophize like Greece. It stabilizes and then it yields. History loves drama, but prophecy loves sequence. And this sequence tells us something profound. Empires are tools. They rise, they serve a function, they fall, and each one prepares the ground for the next. Gold softens into silver, silver hardens into bronze, and bronze gives way to iron. If you're watching world systems today, you ask yourself, are we watching another transition? Is power shifting from personality to law, to culture, to system? Because history does not repeat. mechanically, but it does echo. And the echo from Babylon to Persia to Greece still reverberates through our institutions, our governments, our philosophies, and our sense of authority. The Silver Kingdom did not shine the brightest, but it changed the structure of power forever. And when the Bronze Storm came from the west, the world was ready. So tonight we don't just study the Medo-Persian Empire. We study the hinge of history, the moment silver held the line, before bronze reshaped the world. And once you see that pattern, you can never unsee it. Hello, Thomas. How are you? Hope you're doing good. I am so hungry, I can't even explain it. It sucks. I have to start the beginning of the show starving. Hope you are doing well. Okay. I'm pulling up my notes. All right. That's good. How's the weather? Up in Anchorage, Alaska, or wherever it is you are. Okay, so Thirst Trap News, Nightcap Edition 13, the Medo-Persian Empire. So, who were the Medes and the Persians? Well, I'm going to show you. We can go ahead and start with our first video.
Who founded the Persian Empire? The Persian Empire, also known as the Achaemenid Empire, was founded by Cyrus the Great. This iconic leader, born in 600 BC, changed the world forever. Cyrus's reign, known for justice and respect, was revolutionary. He was the first to establish human rights. Cyrus began to defeat nearby kingdoms, including Media, Lydia, and Babylon. Under his rule, Persia flourished. His empire spanned 3 continents, a remarkable feat. Cyrus's and the Achaemenid Empire's capital was Persepolis. Cyrus also founded a special division of elite soldiers. They were called immortals because their ranks were always kept at 10,000. The Persian Empire eventually fell to Alexander the Great. Cyrus will be remembered as the greatest Persian leader. Who founded the Persian?
Okay. And then this one.
The Persian Empire was once the largest and most advanced empire the world had ever seen. Founded by Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenid dynasty, he united nearby kingdoms under his rule. As the empire grew, it included people from many cultures and became a center for achievements in art, science, and government. The Persians were the first to rule across 3 continents, with a vast territory connected by a road network that hosted the world's first long-distance postal service. At its peak, the empire covered 2 million square miles, stretching from the Balkans to India, and included about 1/5 of the world's population. Persian rulers called themselves King of the World, but that world would fall when Alexander the Great, the King of Macedonia, defeated Darius III at the Battle of Gaugamela and took the empire for himself. The Persian Empire was one...
I should have these loaded up, ready to go. My bad.
The Persian Empire was once the largest and most advanced state the world had ever seen. It was founded by Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenid dynasty, who conquered surrounding kingdoms and united them under his rule. His empire expanded, absorbed diverse peoples, and became a center for cultural achievement and sophisticated government. The Persians were first to rule across 3 continents. Their vast territory connected by a road network on which the world's first long-distance postal service ran. At its height, the empire spanned 2 million square miles, from the Balkans to India, and contained an estimated 1/5 of the world's population.
Wow.
Persian rulers styled themselves King of the World, but that world came tumbling down when Macedonian King Alexander the Great defeated Darius III at Gaugamela and took the empire for himself.
All right. Bitter cold up there, huh? I'm pretty over the cold. I got a heater on my feet right now.
In 539 BC, in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, a powerful empire called Persia conquered Babylon. Babylon was a famous city with giant walls and very smart people. They thought no one could ever defeat them. Their powerful king was King Nabonidus. But Persia's king, Cyrus the Great, wanted to win. He came up with a cunning plan to get into Babylon. Stories say Cyrus changed the path of a river that ran through Babylon, the Euphrates River. This let his soldiers sneak in under the city walls. The Babylonians weren't ready and Persia took over the city fast. Cyrus became king of a huge empire, all the way from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean Sea. This new empire was called the Achaemenid Empire. This battle changed history forever. It showed how powerful Persia was and created a whole new empire. In 539 BC, in Mesopotamia, modern day.
So as the third video showed, these are Indo-Iranian origins. So both descended from the Aryan people. So that's what the Indo-European people are, the Aryans. So they migrated into the Iranian plateau around 1500 to sometime between 1500 to 1000 BCE. And they lived in like tribal confederations. So the Medes established a kingdom first, and their capital was Ecbatana. And their early kings were Deioces, Cyaxares. I don't know if I'm saying those right. And they helped destroy Assyria. So we're going to look at a couple videos on those kings.
King Cyaxares, a name that resonates through the corridors of ancient history, yet remains enveloped in layers of mystery and intrigue. Today, let's delve deep into the life and legacy of this lesser-known yet formidable ruler of the Median Empire. Strap in, history buffs, as we unravel some fascinating tales from over 2,500 years ago. Born into a world of constant upheaval during the 7th century BCE, Cyaxares was thrust into power in a time rife with conflict and transformation. Under his reign, the Median Empire, centered in what is now modern-day Iran, saw unprecedented expansion and military reform. But what truly set Cyaxares apart? It was his military acumen. He's often credited with reorganizing the Median army into specialized units, a revolutionary move that bolstered his forces against formidable foes. King...
Okay.
Why are there not more people talking about the Medes? These ancient warriors shaped history in ways you won't believe. The Medes were an ancient Iranian people who lived in what is now modern-day Iran. They first appeared around 700 BC and quickly became known for their formidable fighting skills. The Medes played a crucial role in overthrowing the mighty Assyrian Empire, teaming up with the Babylonians to capture Nineveh in 612 BC. But here's the twist. They weren't just warriors. The Medes were skilled in governance, laying the groundwork for what would eventually become the Persian Empire. So the next time you think of ancient warriors, remember the Medes. Their legacy is a fascinating chapter in the story of human civilization that deserves to be remembered. Why?
Before Persia ruled the world, Persia was ruled by someone else. The Medes, fierce warriors, masters of the Iranian plateau. They helped destroy Assyria, built a mighty empire, and ruled over the Persians for decades. But their king, Astyages, he got too comfortable. His own grandson, a young Persian prince, led a rebellion. His name was Cyrus. The ruled became the rulers. This was just the beginning. Watch the full story of Persia's rise. Subscribe to Tales.
Stop ignoring history and discover the story of Deioces, the first Median king. Once upon a time in ancient Media, there lived a man named Deioces, a humble judge known for his fairness and wisdom. The people, tired of lawlessness, asked Deioces to rule. Deioces agreed, but with one condition: absolute power. He built a grand palace and surrounded himself with loyal guards. Soon, his reputation spread far and wide, uniting tribes and creating a kingdom. Deioces' tale is a reminder that leadership isn't just about power, but about justice and vision. So next time you study history, remember Deioces, the man who built a nation from chaos. Stay curious and keep learning, because every story is a lesson waiting to be discovered.
Okay. So the Persians were initially subjects of the Medes. They lived in a region of Persis. So that's the modern Fars province. And they were tribal kings of the, I forgot how he said that, Achaemenid line. So we're going to watch this next video. I love videos. They're so helpful.
The Medes, the ancient empire of Iran. The Medes were an ancient Iranian people who established a significant empire in the 7th century BCE. Centered in western Iran, the Median Empire played a crucial role in the downfall of the Assyrian Empire and the rise of the Persian Empire. The Medes are known for their complex political system and interactions with neighboring civilizations, including the Babylonians and Persians. Their capital, Ecbatana, modern Hamadan, was an important cultural and administrative center. The Medes were eventually absorbed into the Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great, but their contributions to the early history of Iran and their influence on subsequent Persian culture are well documented. The Medes.
Did you know who the 10 greatest kings in Iranian history were? 10. Reza Shah. He modernized Iran, enacted reforms, and prioritized infrastructure. 9. Abbas the Great. Expanded borders, fostered a golden age of art, commerce, and science. 8. Ardashir. Founded the Sasanian Empire, revolutionized Persian governance. 7. Nader Shah. Expanded Iran's territory, reformed administration. 6. Khosrow. Expanded empire, governed fairly, patronized Persian culture. 5. Shapur. Expanded Sasanian Empire through military and diplomacy. 4. Artaxerxes. Strengthened empire, advanced culture. 3. Xerxes. Led Persian invasion of Greece, built grand structures. 2. Darius the Great. Conquered expansively, built Persepolis, organized administration. 1. Cyrus the Great. Founded Achaemenid Empire. Advocated for human rights. Did you know who the 10
now? This is a map of Persians. And as we know, the Jews are stomp them out. Look at, that's all where they were. Here's the zoom out. Now they just been whittled down to where the middle. Freaking Israel took over everything over there. All right. So Cyrus the Great. Everybody always knows that name for a reason. So he overthrew the Median king Astyages in 550 BCE until the Medes and Persians, and united the Medes and Persians peacefully. And he also founded the Achaemenid Empire. So here's a video about him.
Cyrus the Great built the Persian Empire. The Persians were basically divided into 3 kingdoms. Cousin was the king of Persia. He was the king of Anshan. And his grandfather was the king of the Medes. And Cyrus the Great, I'm destined for something better than this. I have a better vision than anybody around me. I'm going to take over. And what he did was he attacked his cousin, conquered his cousin, knowing it would trigger his grandfather to respond because his 2 grandsons are fighting. And then set up an ambush, defeats his grandfather, takes him as a prisoner, and says to him, "You're my grandfather. I spent part of my childhood with you training me and teaching me. I love you. I could never be cruel to you. I'm sorry I did this to you. But I have a vision. And that vision is that I'm going to be the king of Persia. So my cousin's out. He's fired. There's no more Anshan. It's just the kingdom of Persia. And I'm that king." Cyrus the Great built the Persian Empire. The Persians were basically...
He was called the King of Kings, a conqueror who built one of history's greatest empires. But how did Cyrus the Great shape the ancient world and leave a legacy that still resonates today? Born around 600 BCE, Cyrus began as the ruler of a small Persian...
Let's start it over. Okay, so Cyrus was looked at as anointed, in the book of Isaiah in the Bible, in Isaiah chapter 45, Cyrus is called God's anointed, and in parentheses, Messiah. So that's extraordinary because he's a Persian king. Okay. He's not an Israelite, yet he's described as divinely appointed by God. So Cyrus allows the Jews to return. Once he became king, he funded the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. This is the country that Israel now wants to attack, by the way, in current news. And him doing those two things, allowing the Jews to return and refund the building of the Jewish temple, allows Medo-Persia not to be positioned as a destroyer, but as a restorer. So the conquest of Babylon, the Persian Empire also defeated Babylon. They basically entered the city without any major destruction. Israel could take some notes. Issued religious tolerance was issued by King Cyrus via papyrus cylinder, restoration of all the temples, and allowed all the exiled people, including Jews, to return home. So I have a video for you now.
From the distant reaches of Sumerian mythology, we're proud to bring you 2 packs of pins. We've got Gilgamesh and Enkidu broing it up, and a glow-in-the-dark Taurus sent by Ishtar herself to crash the party. They're available for a limited time, link below. I don't think we talk enough about the fall of Babylon, and that's coming from someone who has literally never talked about the fall of Babylon. Yes, that sounds crazy, and yes, I have been losing my mind about this for 2 weeks straight, but hear me out. The Babylonian civilization literally invented trigonometry, wrote the star charts we still use, and was home to the most legendarily opulent architecture from the Bronze Age down through the Classical period. Babylon influenced every society in a 2,000-mile radius for hundreds of years and continued to shape Near Eastern culture in the millennia that followed, but Babylon itself lacks the dramatic denouement characteristic of so many neighboring societies. For all the impact it made when it was thriving, Babylon's downfall is fully absent from our popular conception, and when compared to their neighbors like Egypt, Rome, Phoenicia, and Persia, who all have cultural legacies reaching to the modern day, Babylon has a conspicuous lack of direct successor states. The original Bronze Age Babylonian Empire ran from the 19th to the 16th centuries BC, and then one full millennium later, the classical era Neo-Babylonian Empire ruled for just shy of a century, from 626 to 539 BC. So while we have dramatic biblical tales of Babylon raising a tower to the heavens and getting the almighty backhand of God for their hubris, on the whole, their downfall is murkier because it happened at several points, but also in none of them. Those Babylonians left a wily historical legacy, but I think we can pin them down. So, to figure out when Babylon fell, how, and why that question is so fascinating, let's do some history. We begin, as we always do in Mesopotamia, with the rivers, because Babylon's rise owes to the shifting course of the Euphrates between roughly 2000 and 1800 BC. It was just some city before the Middle Bronze Age, but when the river moved west, humble little Babylon found itself right on the water and controlling the narrowest point between the Tigris and Euphrates, uniquely well situated along the major trade routes at a time when no single empire ruled Mesopotamia. The third dynasty of Ur had collapsed around 2000 BC, and in the hazy centuries after, ethnic Amorites settled all along the rivers at places such as Babylon. Around the turn of the 1700s BC, Babylon went big mode during the reign of King Hammurabi, who not only conquered up and down Mesopotamia, but set the new standard for empire in both structure and achievement. Hammurabi went farther than any of his predecessors in centralizing power on himself, leaving less room for outer cities and local administrators to cause trouble, while allowing far stronger coordination between the king and the provinces. Hammurabi also made a conscious effort to model himself as a protector of everyone in the empire, as very pointedly conveyed in the preamble to his famous law code. Babylonian law had precedents from earlier Sumerian works, but the Code of Hammurabi set a true uniform standard of justice across the empire, a categorized list of key laws whose legal precedent could also guide judges to adapt or create new laws that all still fit Hammurabi's vision. The laws themselves are pretty hardcore, with 1-to-1 retribution as the penalty for most crimes, eye for an eye and all that, but it seems in practice like a calculated off-ramp from the kinds of never-ending blood feuds that make up 90% of world literature by volume. Speaking of, we have Babylon to thank for one of the oldest written stories on Earth, the Epic of Gilgamesh. The original folktales were Sumerian from centuries earlier and mostly focused on the heroic exploits of the great king Gilgamesh, but Babylonian storytellers collated them into one narrative focusing all in on the emotional drama of Gilgamesh losing his best friend Enkidu and embarking on a doomed quest for immortality. The Babylonian version also incorporates the myth of the Great Flood as key backstory, showing a literary tradition that was comfortable combining very disparate sources into one cohesive whole. Aside from stories of kings, their mathematics were so advanced they were giving the Pythagorean theorem as homework a millennium before Greeks twigged onto the idea, and they even understood contagious disease. A king wrote that if someone's sick, don't hang out with them and don't touch their shit. The strength of their writing and overall cultural heft made their Akkadian tongue into the diplomatic language of the Near East, and their ideas traveled right along with it. For 150 years after Hammurabi's death, Babylon was the grandest and most accomplished imperial city in the Near East, but here we find their first fall in 1595 BC, as the newcomer Hittite Empire from Anatolia swept down the Euphrates, sacked the city and deposed the dynasty, and then just went back home. I mean, you know how these things happen. You get caught up in all the excitement, don't pay complete attention to what you're setting fire to, and only hours later you realize, oh crap, that was Babylon. In the wake of the chaos, the Kassite people from the east swooped in to take the kingdom for themselves as the new ruling dynasty. But tellingly,
Hi, Siva P801.
they didn't change much. Babylon remains the capital, Akkadian stayed the primary language, and later Assyrian conquerors had the same idea that Babylon in itself was valuable, even after the original Babylonians were sacked and deposed. Long before Rome, this may be the first case of a civilization outlasting their own fall through the power of sheer vibes, and I respect that. By the 800s, the Assyrian Empire was the major player, but the biggest change came from ordinary people, as by this point Mesopotamia had a second main language in Aramaic, written with an alphabet that was far easier to learn and use than cuneiform. So when a new dynasty in Babylon asserted its independence from Assyria and sacked their capital in 612, they had created a Neo-Babylonian empire not on the basis of the ethnicity or language of old, but that it was the city of Babylon at the imperial helm again. And from 605 to 562 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar II splashed every ornamentation on his capital to make it worthy of that ancient mantle. According to a very impressed, but certainly exaggerating Herodotus, Babylon was an exact square surrounded by the river, canals, and giant brick walls, with magnificent gates and broad processional roads all framing massive palaces, gardens, and temples, such as at Temenanki, the great six-layer ziggurat which directly inspired the myth of the Tower of Babel. And for whatever reason, unlike the great ziggurat of Ur with its proportions of squares perfectly inscribed within a triangle, Temenanki just doesn't do it for me on the proportions. Aesthetically, it rules, a phenomenal feat of design and pure height, but the shapes don't click with me, and I really can't articulate why. Proportion is just one of those indescribable things. But architectural diatribes aside, unlike Herodotus, biblical sources would likely have seen the ziggurat for themselves, as Nebuchadnezzar's conquest of Judah resulted in the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and mass deportations of Jews to Babylon. Now, despite the spectacular restoration of Babylonian prestige and power, many of their own citizens were also having some religion issues. King Nabonidus was engaged in what various sources describe as religious reform or outright heresy by reorienting the Babylonian pantheon towards the moon god Sin, but the priesthood of their patron god Marduk was deeply unthrilled, and nearby aspiring empires took notice. When the Achaemenid Persian Empire conquered down into Mesopotamia, King Cyrus went to great lengths to paint this as a liberation and a restoration of Marduk to his place atop the pantheon. At first, this narrative seemed familiar. An outside group comes in, retains their religion, language, and core institutions, and continues to rule from Babylon. New management, same company. Babylon falls, but lives another day. But Cyrus didn't do that last part because Babylon was one of 5 capitals, and the only one outside of their homeland.
So here are the capitals. Persepolis is the other one people know. Susa, Parsargadae, Ekbatana is the one that applies to what we were talking about.
In Iran. Cyrus didn't try to turn Babylon Persian, and he borrowed several aspects of Babylonian society, like Aramaic language and cuneiform writing for fancy occasions, but critically,
thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
Persia also borrowed from their new subjects in Media, Assyria, Anatolia, Greece, and Egypt, so Babylon was only one part of this new Achaemenid identity. Only one capital. Only Babylon. And that is something they could never recover from. When Alexander, the should have stayed sober, toppled the Persians and plans to make Babylon his new imperial capital, he carefully dismantled Temenanki with the aim of rebuilding it, but died before getting to that crucial second part. So off went the crowning monument of a whole civilization. Sure, he had successors, but none with sympathies to Babylon. His general Seleucus carved out an empire in the Near East, but made a new capital at Seleucia on the Tigris, later known as Ctesiphon, to its Parthian and Sasanian rulers. With its usefulness seemingly outlived, Babylon eroded in the centuries after as people simply left. By the time of the Romans at the turn of the millennium, Babylon was a ghost, slowly sinking back down into the floodplains it first rose out of 1800 years before. Babylon is not a descriptive identity. Amorites had founded the first dynasty, yet the Neo-Babylonians counted several major ethnic groups and spoke a different language. Most other states in the interim had also ruled from the ancient capital, but only this empire earns the name Neo-Babylonian because they put their city back atop the entire Near Eastern world. Not an empire of any one group, but an
This is YouTube.
empire of the city. Gradual change was part of the game, but every new ruler at some level submitted themselves to the mantle of Babylon and took on its ways. Despite Saxon deposed dynasties, Babylon never truly fell because it always had something to teach. Had
Saxon opposed dynasties.
Alexander, the gone from our empires but not from our hearts, lived and made Babylon his capital, we might be talking about the Greco-Babylonian Empire instead of a Macedonian one, but even still, by his day, the idea of Babylon was no longer so innately compelling that people turned to it alone as the model and meter of civilization. Sure, they borrowed from it, but Babylon became lost amid other influences. Persian, Egyptian, Greek, Judaic, Anatolian, Indian, not the sole beacon of civilization in the Near East, just another of its constituent parts. So when did Babylon fall? When the rest of the ancient world caught up to it. Thank you for watching. I promise far too...
Okay, so there's biblical significance of this mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Isaiah, the book of Daniel, the book of Ezra. So Cyrus was seen as a Messiah according to Isaiah 45, like we discussed earlier. He was an anointed one. Like I said before, allowed the rebuilding of that temple. So here's another video. This one's not as long.
The destruction of Jerusalem at the hands of Nebuchadnezzar II, king of Babylon, in the year 586 BCE, shook the Jewish people to their core. The temple burned. Tens of thousands were killed.
So this is what happened before Cyrus took over by Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. So then when Cyrus conquered Nebuchadnezzar, he allowed for all of this to be reconstructed.
And Jerusalem, the kingdom's capital for over 400 years, was razed to the ground. Those who survived the horrors of war were driven out on a long, grueling march to Babylon. Many would not survive the journey. At the end of the journey, on the banks of the river Euphrates, a lament of grief and longing bursts out among the exiles. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Also, we wept as we remembered Zion. In the midst of this calamity comes a message of hope from Jerusalem. The prophet Jeremiah urges the exiles to rebuild their lives in Babylon. Build houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens and eat the fruit of them. For thus said the Lord, after 70 years in Babylon, I will visit you and fulfill my good word to you by returning you to this place. Indeed, the Jews embrace Babylonian customs and language, engage in farming and commerce, and acquire wealth and status. As the Jews thrive in Babylon, their ties to the land of Israel grow weaker. Here, look at these documents at the Bible Lands Museum. These are receipts and documents that belong to the exiled Jews. They were written in the Babylonian language 2,600 years ago. These documents include Hebrew names like Haggai, Joshua, Achikam, and Netanyahu. But there are also Babylonian names that the exiles adopted from their new neighbors. Is this what these tablets are telling us? That the Jewish people were assimilating and were about to vanish like many other nations? Apparently not. Surprisingly, Jewish identity actually strengthened during the exile. The Jews kept the Sabbath and the laws of the Torah. They formed strong communities that remained separate from those of their non-Jewish neighbors. However, as time went by, the dream of returning to Jerusalem became more and more distant. The Babylonian kings treated minorities ruthlessly. Under their rule, the Jews would never have a chance to go back to the land of Israel. But wait, it appears that the harsh regime is about to come to an end. In 539 BCE, the mighty army of Cyrus the Great, king of Persia and Media, conquered Babylon. Upon marching triumphantly into the city, King Cyrus made an unprecedented gesture that would forever change the fate of the ancient world. Cyrus declared jubilantly that all nations, including the Jews, were now permitted to return to their homelands and rebuild their temples. Until 1879 CE, the world only knew of this important decree thanks to the Bible. That year, a remarkable discovery was made in the ruins of Babylon. A small clay cylinder with an inscription in the Babylonian language in Akkadian script. When it was deciphered, the scholars were astonished. It was an authentic 2,600-year-old copy of the Edict of Cyrus. Despite differences between the biblical text and the inscription,
the decree where he allowed them to return
on the cylinder, the scholars concluded that in fact both texts refer to the same proclamation. It seems Cyrus issued several versions of the edict, each one adapted to the nation's specific language and beliefs. The Hebrew version of the Edict of Cyrus appears in the book of Ezra. Thus said Cyrus, king of Persia, "The Lord, God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever is among you of all his people, may his God be with him. Let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house."
He wasn't even Jewish, so this is why God, I guess, called him his anointed one or Messiah, because he was a non-Jew that allowed them to return. And he just felt like he was just moved by God.
Of the Lord, God of Israel, he is God, which is in Jerusalem. The Jews were exhilarated by the Edict of Cyrus. The land of Israel was once again accessible. The return to Zion began.
Okay, that's basically the end of that one. I'm not about to listen to a bunch of sympathy for the Jews. Sorry, folks. So the Persian imperial structure and governance, they were very innovative when it came to administration, and they divided the empire into satrapies, or basically, in other words, provinces, and the governors were called satraps, and local autonomy was allowed through the governors. So here is a couple videos on satraps.
Did you know the Achaemenid Persian Empire was the largest the world had ever seen in 550 BCE? Led by the King of Kings, rulers like Cyrus the Great and Darius I controlled an empire spanning 3 continents. How did they manage it? Through satraps, regional governors who kept the peace, collected taxes, and ensured loyalty. The Royal Road allowed messages to travel 1,500 miles in days, while monumental cities like Persepolis showcased Persian greatness. Though it fell to Alexander the Great, the Persian Empire's legacy lives on, shaping history and culture even today. Did you know?
In 1935, Persia changed its name to Iran. But why? Well, this was because the name Persia is an exonym, which means that Persians didn't call themselves Persians, but the rest of the world did. Instead, they called themselves these names, which you might notice are very similar to
Arya, Iran, and Iransar.
Iran. To increase nationalism and unity in the country, the Shah of Persia changed his country's name to Iran. That's why, in 1935, Persia changed its name to Iran. But why? Well, this
That was a good little maneuver at the end of that video for it to replay. All right, so the legal system, the law of the Medes and Persians was basically unalterable, and it's referenced as well in the book of Daniel.
Did you know about the unbreakable laws of the Medes and Persians? Yes, the laws of Medes and Persians are such that even kings couldn't change them. But the real question is, why are the laws so? The untold answer is that they believed that their king was chosen by the gods. So, when a king made a law, it was like the gods themselves had spoken. Changing it would mean going against the gods. And nobody wanted that kind of trouble. Do you remember Daniel in the Bible? He got caught praying to God instead of the king, and the jealous officials trapped him using one of these unchangeable laws. The king didn't want Daniel to be thrown to the lions, but his hands were tied. The law had to be followed, but God came through for Daniel, right? After that, the king made a new decree to worship Daniel's God. But that's a story for another time. The point is that those laws were set in stone. Literally. This shows how powerful and serious some legal systems can be. Sometimes, even those in power can get trapped by the very rules they create. Follow me for more.
The Medes passed down a strict legal system to the Persians, one so rigid that it was said to altereth not. Once a royal decree was made, not even the king could revoke it. This unwavering rule of law became famous in history, even appearing in the biblical book of Daniel. Justice in Persia was absolute. But was it always fair? The Medes passed down a strict legal system.
Like an auctioneer. All right, so the infrastructure, they had something called a royal road system, and it was about 2,500 kilometers. It was a very efficient courier system, and they had standardized taxation as well.
The Medes passed down a strict legal system to the Persians, one so rigid that it was said to altereth not. Once a royal decree. The Medes passed down a strict legal system to the Persians, one so rigid that it was said to...
This damn thing did the wrong... Oh, well, it's fine. We can skip it. It's got the wrong video in the placeholder. So the key rulers after Cyrus was Cambyses II, who was the son of Cyrus, and he conquered Egypt in the year 525 BCE, and he even had some other campaigns down in Africa as well.
In the shadows of ancient Persia, one name echoes with madness. Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great. Once hailed as a king, he would become a tyrant consumed by power and bloodlust. After conquering Egypt in 525 BC, Cambyses didn't celebrate with honor. Instead, he descended into terrifying cruelty. Whispers from ancient sources speak of feasts unlike any other, where dogs were fed human flesh and enemies of the throne were devoured like animals. According to Greek historian Herodotus, Cambyses ordered the public execution of rivals, and sometimes he didn't stop there. In a fit of paranoia, he even killed his own brother, Smerdis, fearing betrayal. He desecrated Egyptian temples, mocked sacred rituals, and called himself God, but treated human life as less than dirt. One horrifying... In the shadows of ancient Persia, one...
Okay. Shit, he was crazy. So now we have Darius the Great. So that's Darius the first. He had reorganized the empire, and he built one of the other capitals, Persepolis, and introduced standardized coinage, basically called Darics. They were called Darics. Yeah. And that expanded into the Indus Valley. So now we're going to go to this video here.
Dive into the annals of time, where the tale of King Darius reigns supreme. A robust ruler, Darius expanded the Persian Empire to its zenith, stretching from Egypt to India. His rule, marked by economic prosperity and a grand network of roads, left an indelible mark on the world. But every empire sees its sunset. Darius's downfall came at the Battle of Marathon against the Greeks. Though he sought revenge, fate had another plan. He passed away, leaving the mantle of revenge to his son Xerxes. Xerxes, the inheritor of an empire and a mission, met the Greeks at Thermopylae and Salamis. His victories were short-lived. His empire crumbled, extinguishing the Persian flame. Yet, the story of Darius and Xerxes, of rise and fall, of ambition and legacy, persists in history's pages. It's a tale that tells us empires may fade, but their tales, they live forever. Dive into the annals of time, where the...
So then we move into Xerxes the First. So he invaded Greece, and he led the battles of Thermopylae and Salamis, and was mentioned in the book of Esther. And in that book, he's traditionally identified as Azarias. So that name might sound a little familiar to you. But let's go into our next video.
Did you know, in 300, the Persian Emperor Xerxes is portrayed as a tyrannical bald giant prone to temper tantrums who viewed himself as a god. But the real Xerxes was quite different. He had long hair and a bushy beard and was a devout worshipper of the lone god of Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda, and was quite the capable ruler aside from his failed invasion of Greece. Did you know, in 300...
He ruled over the largest empire the world had ever seen, stretching across 3 continents. But for Xerxes the Great, it wasn't enough. His ambition was boundless, his ruthlessness unmatched. In 480 BCE, he set out to conquer Greece, orchestrating the largest invasion in ancient history. An army so vast, it said they drank rivers dry. To invade Greece, Xerxes ordered an audacious engineering feat. A bridge built across the Hellespont, a stormy sea dividing Asia and Europe. But when a storm destroyed it, Xerxes flew into a rage and did the unthinkable. He commanded his men to whip the sea as if punishing it for defiance. And then he built the bridge again, because failure wasn't an option. Xerxes' massive army swept into Greece like a tidal wave. But at the narrow pass of Thermopylae, just 300 Spartans stood in his way. Against impossible odds, they held the Persian forces for 3 days, proving that courage could defy even the mightiest of kings. Xerxes won the battle, but not without paying a heavy price, one that would haunt him. Flush with victory, Xerxes turned his sights to the seas. His navy, thousands strong, sailed into the narrow straits of Salamis. But the Greeks had a plan. Luring the Persians into a deadly trap, they unleashed chaos. Xerxes watched in disbelief as his once invincible fleet was destroyed, ship by ship. His dream of conquest was slipping away. Defeated, humiliated, and burdened by the weight of his own ambition, Xerxes retreated back to Persia. His empire would endure, but his dreams of world domination crumbled in the waves at Salamis. The man who sought to conquer the world was undone by his own hubris.
All right, so now we're into the Persian wars with Greece, the Iranian revolt. So, this is the point where the Greek cities in Asia Minor started to rebel.
If you love epic battles and ancient drama, then you need to know about the Persian Wars. Picture this: the mighty Persian Empire, the biggest superpower of the ancient world, decides to invade Greece. But the small, scrappy Greek city-states weren't having it. In 490 BC, the Persians launched their first attack at Marathon. Against all odds, the Greeks won. Flash forward 10 years and the Persians are back for round 2. This time they brought a massive army and a fleet of ships. But the Greeks, led by the brave Spartans, held their ground at the Battle of Thermopylae. Even though the Spartans lost, they inspired all of Greece to unite. The grand finale, the Battle of Salamis, where the clever Greeks lured the Persian navy into a trap and crushed them. The Persian Wars proved that determination and unity can defeat even the greatest of empires. So next time you think the odds are against you, remember the Greeks.
Okay, now we have this one.
30,000 Persian warriors descended upon Greece, but Athens didn't wait. Led by Miltiades, fewer than 10,000 hoplites, many of them farmers and citizens, marched out to face the full force of the empire. With no cavalry, no reinforcements, and no room for retreat, the Athenians charged. They sprinted across the plain under a hail of arrows and crashed into the Persian line. The center buckled. The Greek flanks wrapped around like a trap. In moments, the Persians were surrounded, broken, and driven back toward the sea. 30,000 Persian warriors descended upon...
Next one.
Have you heard about this epic battle? In 480 BC, a dramatic clash unfolded in the Strait of Salamis. The Greek fleet of 300 ships found itself in a desperate situation, surrounded by the vast Persian fleet of 1,200 ships, outnumbering them 4-1. In this dire moment, the Greek general Themistocles came up with a brilliant plan. He lured the massive Persian fleet into the narrow Strait of Salamis. The Persians fell for the trap, and their large ships became trapped and disorganized in the confined space, colliding with each other chaotically. Seizing this opportunity, Themistocles ordered a full-scale attack. The Greek fleet launched a fierce assault, systematically destroying the Persian ships. The Greek coalition achieved a decisive victory. This triumph allowed Greece to thwart the Persian invasion, laying the foundation for Western civilization. Have you heard about this epic battle?
So their major battles for Persia was Marathon in 490 BCE, then Thermopylae in 480 BCE, then after that was Salamis in 480 BCE, and then after that, the following year, is the Battle of Plataea in 479 BCE. And the result of that was that Persia got to remain powerful and Greek city-states remained independent. So the religion of the empire, they were a Zoroastrian influence of the Medo-Persian Empire. They had a prophet named Zoroaster. He was the hidden prophet behind Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. They were dualists, so they had dualism. So Ahura Mazda versus Angra Mainyu, sorry. And then the concepts for their religion were basically that it's cosmic good versus evil. There is a judgment and an afterlife, and also a final restoration period. So let's look at some videos on that.
In the height of ancient Persia, more than 3,000 years ago, a solitary figure dared to challenge the beliefs of his age. His name was Zoroaster, known as Zarathustra. Legend tells that by the banks of a sacred river, he received a revelation, a vision of the eternal struggle between light and darkness. He preached of a single creator, Ahura Mazda, of heaven and hell, of angels, demons, and a final judgment. Ideas that shook the ancient world and would one day echo in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Yet his story remains shrouded in myth. No great monuments bear his name, no certainty of when or where he lived. His traces lie buried in the shadows of history, but his voice still resonates in the faith of billions today. Who was Zoroaster? A forgotten prophet, a mythic visionary, or the unseen architect of the world's greatest religions? The truth lies hidden within the mists of history, waiting to be uncovered.
Join us as we uncover the untold story of Zoroaster Sobs and explore more forgotten voices that shape.
Okay. Next one.
Zoroaster, also known as Zarathustra, is one of history's most influential figures. As the founder of Zoroastrianism, his teachings shaped ancient Persian culture and may have even influenced major religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But who was Zoroaster? That's where the mystery begins. Historians can't agree on when or where he lived. Some place him in the 7th century BCE alongside Cyrus the Great, while others suggest he may have lived as far back as 6000 BCE. With so few records, Zoroaster himself is almost as legendary as the gods he preached about. His impact on history is undeniable, but his life remains a mystery lost to time.
Did you know that Zoroastrianism originated in Persia? It is still practiced in parts of South Asia, with the practitioners commonly called Parsis, owing to their Persian origin. The founder of this religion is Zarathustra or Zoroaster. They worship god Ahura Mazda and find his impression upon fire. Like, share, subscribe. So now did you know? Nearly 2,600 years ago in ancient Persia, a prophet named Zoroaster spoke of one true God, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Light. He revealed a world of duality, a struggle between light and darkness, truth and falsehood, calling humanity to choose a path of righteousness. In hymns called the Gathas, Zoroaster taught his followers to seek purity and honor, guided by Ahura Mazda's wisdom. In Persia, faith of light and choice emerged, shaping beliefs that would endure. Next, we travel to Israel, where a sacred covenant would be made with Yahweh, one true God. Nearly 2,600 years ago in ancient Persia,
this fire has been burning for 1,500 years straight. These are the Zoroastrians, an ancient religion that considers fire a sacred symbol. I'm here in Yazd, a very old city in Iran with a still important number of Zoroastrians living here. It is impossible to be converted to this religion, only getting it from family, so their numbers are dwindling against Islam, but still alive and well. Zoroastrians believe that fire, water, and earth are all sacred elements. Because of this, they don't bury their dead in the earth, rather placing their bodies in a large pit on top of a tower like this. Here they will let the birds scavenge the bodies until nothing but bone is left. They put the bones in the center as the final resting place to ensure the body never comes in contact with sacred elements like the earth. This practice has been outlawed in Iran for decades, and now they bury bodies in concrete, but I can't deny it's a bit creepy coming up to this tower knowing what used to be here. Zoroastrians follow 3 core tenets: good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. This fire has been burning for 50
Interesting. So there was religious tolerance. They allowed the subject peoples to keep their gods and temple restorations. The law of the Medes and Persians is referenced in Daniel chapter 6 in the Bible. It references the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked. This matters prophetically because Babylon was an absolute monarch. Medo-Persia was a legal empire, and the power shifts from personal divinity, like the Babylonian kings, as basically near godlike, to it shifts to a bureaucratic law. So this is basically a civilized evolution. So they had a lot of geographic reach, the Medo-Persian Empire. I have to restart my live. Oh, shit. All right.